Decentering men is not about not interacting with men. It's more about managing your expectations.
Entire childhood, my mother, from personal experience, would constantly tell me, don't ever, ever, ever put your life on pause for a man. Like, don't move anywhere for him, don't stay somewhere for him, always put yourself first, right? Guess what I did? The opposite, of course. Whoever listens to their mother. I dated my ex-boyfriend throughout grad school. It was a long-distance relationship. He was in the States, I was in Italy, and then when I was in grad school, he promised me that he wanted to marry me. Like, that was his thing. He brought it up. I didn't say anything about it. I was good just like going with the vibes, and all of a sudden he's like, marriage. And I was like, wait, what is going on? Oh, marriage. Okay, cool. So the plan was I would go down to Florida after I graduated. We would try it out for 6 months, then get married. And then a few months in, he was like, oh, no, we can't get married. Anyway, because of that specific decision, I put on pause a bunch of opportunities I possibly could have had straight out of school, and I ended up derailing my life for like 3 years. But ultimately, the lesson that I should have already learned just by listening to my mother was don't center men. Luckily, I don't have regrets, but I can't say it wasn't a difficult lesson.
Most men have the least respect for women that do the most for them, and it's sad, but it's true. I'm sure you've been there where you were like, if I just love him just a little bit harder, he is going to see everything that I am as a woman and that I am for him. But really, it's just making him hate you more. He has less amount of respect for you because he knows that he can just do whatever and you're never going to go anywhere. And this is why I talk so much about having that dark feminine energy, tapping into that and learning how to decenter men. Now, when I say decenter men, people take it as, oh, just done with men. No, I don't know about you. I need a man in my life. What I mean by decentering men is not making them the center of your life. So women will get a man and then we just fall off the face of the earth. We're just like, oh, friends, family. No, my man. I'm with my man. Learn how to decenter men. Learn how to make yourself the center. When you make yourself the center, you have high standards, high boundaries, and you always put yourself first.
Decentering men is not about not interacting with men. It's more about managing your expectations with men. It's about realizing that most of the men you interact with are not going to be that guy. And if he's giving unserious energy, just simply match the energy and get what you can get out of the situation and enjoy yourself. Separate yourself from the outcome of this man, because the outcome for you is irrelevant. The only way the outcome becomes relevant is if he makes it relevant. I'm going to give you an example. You can have consensual, safe relations with men and take them unseriously because that's how he's acting. But if this man behaves differently, then you can move him out of that unserious category and into a considerate category. That's what it means. Just manage your expectations around these men.
What is decentering? I'm so glad that you asked. And sorry I had to verify your gender. I was just making sure you're my target audience because I don't make a lot of content for men. The idea of decentering men, the way that I've lived it, is just making yourself the priority of your life. Not making decisions around what men want based on what you wear, how you conduct yourself, where you choose to live, what you choose to accomplish. It basically just means not centering your life decisions around men. That's it. Some women have taken it to an extreme to mean that they just don't want to deal with men at all. That's not what I consider decentering to be, and that's what the point of the video was. Thanks for asking.
Your daily reminder that decentering men from your life is a daily practice. Decentering male approval.
Okay, this is such a beautiful, beautiful video, and it got me thinking about the ways that I am currently trying to practice in order to decenter men. And something that I realized is that it can be fairly easy to have this external approach where you don't focus so much on your dating life and you get off dating apps. But it's a whole other thing when you try to address it internally. And one of the things that I am very curious to discover is what fills up the space that centering men is currently taking up. Because something that happens to me a lot is that my autopilot is being very aware of my appearance, and not just how I dress or how I do my makeup or how I do my hair, but small things like my posture and how I speak and my gestures. Like, it's the male gaze on steroids, and that's the first thing I'm trying to tackle.
Today's lesson is how to decenter men and stop craving male validation. You need to find hobbies that don't have to do with men. If you don't have any hobbies, then the only real thing going on for you that's outside of the normal is your relationship. Next is make a to-do list every single day that doesn't have to do with men. Wake up, you get on a dating app, you text men, swiping on a dating app to texting these men, and then you call them and you're on FaceTime with them all day. You're always with them. Anytime they want you to pull up, you're pulling up. Texting them all day will not be a fucking option because you're gonna cut that out by only doing things that you have to do on your to-do list. Obviously, keep yourself so busy that you don't have time to think about them. This one works wonders. You don't have to act like, oh, I'm gonna ignore his text for 3 hours, because girl, you're already not gonna respond for those 3 hours because you're gonna be doing things to level up yourself. And then slowly but surely, you'll start to get used to their presence not being there all the time. It'll become a normal thing for you not to call them and not to text them. You'll realize how much happier you are to not constantly being like, how can I cater to the male gaze? How can I make him think that I'm this amazing person? Because you'll just be living your life. You won't be asking yourself, why hasn't he called me back yet? You'll be so busy to the point where you won't even notice that he hasn't texted you. And that is how you start to decenter them from your life, by just doing you. Delete the dating apps. I'm not playing with you. Delete the dating apps, girl. Having dating apps just proves that these random men that you don't even know still have access to you. You need to make it clear to yourself you're not accessible without commitment. And dating apps, girl, there's no commitment coming out of dating apps, especially Tinder. Go ahead and stop checking your social media, DMs, messages, notifications. These are men that you've never met, you don't see them, and yet you're wondering who's liking your stuff. You're wondering who's in your DMs. If you're checking your DMs specifically to text men, ooh, this next one, girl. Do not Snapchat a man. Do not Snapchat a man. Do not Snapchat absolutely no exceptions. I didn't care about a man, then I would choose to snap him. Just think about that. Like, as a man, why would he choose to snap you over just texting you regularly? When a man asks me for my Snapchat, I immediately am like, get far away from me. Last one is, you do not have to hate men in order to prioritize yourself in your life before theirs. Just keep your distance. I'm not saying act like men don't exist and stop dating and stop. No, like, absolutely not. I'm just saying you need to always put yourself first. The moment that you put a man before you is the moment that you make men the center of your life. That's a no-no. They should be centering you, honey. I'll let you guys screenshot this for future use so that you never forget. All right, dolls, good luck.
Years ago, something happened to me within a relationship, and it really just opened my eyes as to like how hurtful men are. I've known that for quite some time, but it's like men are so hurtful with no remorse. I no longer have a desire to get in a relationship. I no longer have the desire to get married. Damn near about to give up on my dreams of becoming a mom one day. I'm not trying to be a misandrist. I'm not trying to H-word men again, but it's like, how could you not? They are so hurtful. They are disrespectful, disloyal, rude.
Videos like this are exactly why I make the kind of content that I make, because it is genuinely just so sad to me. Like, it's not even like, oh, I hate men or whatever, this like radical feminist thing. It's not that. And I don't hate men. Like, I love men. Like, I want to get married and all that stuff. There's just something so painful to me about a beautiful woman losing her shine and her inner glow and her excitement for life over a crusty, dusty man that she was just trying to love and like bring up, and he did nothing but destroy her. This is damage that can last years, a lifetime even, because the girl wanted to love you, lift you up, and you just wanted to trifle and mess around and literally not even spend 0.5 seconds considering what the other person might be feeling, someone that you claim to love. Like, it's so fucked up. It is so fucked up, and it makes me so mad. We just genuinely want to love and be loved. Like, that is it. That is what most of us aspire to, like the most innocent thing ever. But we just don't live in a world where it's that simple. We live in a predatory world. I feel like a lot of girls think that there are like all these invisible rules that we have to follow, like don't hurt people, don't be rude to people, don't be selfish, like always tell the truth, especially when it comes to dating. And these are all rules that men do not follow. They just do whatever works best for them. And that's always going to be a winning strategy. It just is.
It's just time for me to just really focus on myself. 103,000%. Like, really just strictly lock in on everything that I want to do.
Sometimes you really do need to take a break. And like that can mean a year, 2 years, 3 years, where you don't even try to date. You're just focusing on your goals, focusing on yourself, your health, your wealth. And then you get to the point where it's been so long that you've been just fully focused on yourself and your own growth, which has been like successful. It always is. When you pour into yourself, you see the fruits of that labor, and not even like thinking about dating at all, totally decentering men. Once you go back out into the dating world, there's no man that can take your power from you, because it's already all yours. Like, you built everything that you are from scratch, so no man can like take it away from you or diminish it. I really just think that women are like warriors at heart, like a different kind of strength, not a physical strength, but a strength of the soul that just needs to be tapped into more often. Don't be the victim, don't be the broken girl, don't be the bitter girl. Just be better. Like, focus on your life. Build a life for yourself. Not so that you can attract the right man finally, but so that you can just have a happy life. Like, there's so many other ways to find happiness other than relationships. And once you just really discover that for yourself, when you go back into dating, you can just actually just get whatever you want, because you're not scared of being alone. You've been alone, and it's great. So my heart goes out to anyone that's going through this phase right now, but trust me, this phase right here is exactly where every single baddie is born from. The disappointment of another fucking man. This is why women are bossing up. It is all from pain. Not because we want to, not because we're like trying to be the main characters in this world. It is just purely for survival at this point. Just survival.
This is exactly why I don't take spiritual advice from men anymore. This doesn't mean I'm a man hater. I still read books written by men and research and TED Talks and TikToks by men. But when it comes to actually ordering my life, I have stopped trying to make my life look spiritually acceptable to men. And it's because men have very specific criteria for what spirituality is, based on the reality that men have only been the ones writing religious rites and religious scripture, and no female has ever been accepted as a Jesus or Buddha type character. So that means what is called spiritual is by definition male-centric.
Okay, she ate with this one. I just had to add my 2 cents. Because this is not solely a problem of the Abrahamic religions. It's also a problem in the more esoteric practices, in the meditation and the philosophies of non-attachment and all of that. I remember I was reading The Power of Now, or trying to. I have yet to finish that book. And the first thing that threw me off was Eckhart Tolle said, I had to let go of all my attachments to be like my most spiritual self. And so I like intentionally became homeless, and I was wandering the streets, and that's like the most connected I felt to any human being. And I felt like so at one, so at peace. And I immediately closed the book. I was like, baby, I promise you, if you were a woman, that would not have been your experience. But the problem is, in male-centric spirituality, there's this glorification of suffering. There's this glorification of minimalism. There's this glorification of discipline, so-called discipline, that basically is inaccessible to women 99% of the time, because we don't get to be minimalistic. We don't get to have selfish discipline. Just even the way it's framed, it's always like this voluntary thing. Like when Jesus tells the rich man to give up all his worldly possessions and follow him, all the rich man has to give up are possessions. Just like the disciples, his apostles, all they gave up were their personal jobs, and they put down their stuff and they followed Jesus.
You can't do that if you are married with children as a woman. Like, men put down their children all the time. But if somebody tells you, if you want spiritual enlightenment, put down your family and follow me, that's quite a bit of a different ask. Even the way ownership is positioned in the Bible is very much male-centric. Like, these men who are instructed to give up everything were always these single men, and it's positioned as the choice between heavenly gain and earthly stuff. Like Zacharias, for all I know, he was single. So when Jesus said, give up all your worldly things that you got stealing and whatnot, it was easy for him. Or in the epistles, when people talked about, in the early church having all their property in common, what does that look like when you have children? It's really not the same. That whole Mary and Martha debacle can be explained by this. I always hated the way Jesus handled that situation. Disclaimer, I am no longer a Christian, but I was raised a Christian, so I do know a lot about the Bible. But it was completely disrespectful. Martha was upset because Jesus was always coming to their home and she did all the work, and Mary was sitting by his feet, soaking up the sun and chit-chatting. And when Martha asked Jesus basically to even things out, like send her sister to help her, he was like, oh no, what Mary's doing is a lot more valuable. I'm like, only a man who's never cooked a meal could say that. Jesus could will food into existence, so he's never going to appreciate the work it is to cook. Jesus was in essence homeless. Okay, he went from place to place. He said the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head, so he never had to maintain a house. So if you follow a spirituality where the leader is positioning things like going out into the wilderness, praying without ceasing, fasting, just having all this unfettered time with God as the highest possible spiritual good, you're always going to feel like you're failing because you're never going to have time for that, especially as a woman. The bedrock of that spirituality is antithetical to how you live your life. You are always going to feel like you're failing. It's designed that way. So women in this season are coming out of the spiritual practices that don't serve them and following any kind of advice that doesn't serve them. Because I've noticed this over and over, particularly in self-help books. This woman started out her video by stitching another woman by saying, these guys who are writing these dude bro advice books, they're not the ones raising their own children. It's true. Men give this esoteric advice like Henry David Thoreau and Walden, and it turns out he was living on his mommy's land and she was bringing him sandwiches. Like, men become the philosophers and they give you these jacked up philosophies that they themselves were not even following because women are always in the background doing the hard work. I love The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, but where I got upset with the book was he said, stop with the excuses. It's just a resistance. Tolstoy had 9 children. I was like, yeah, he wasn't raising them. He was saying how you can write every day despite anything. And then later on in the book, he's like, yeah, Tolstoy abandoned his children to his wife. You just got to do whatever you got to do to make sure you get your writing done. I'm like, no, that's not doing what you got to do. That is literally dumping your work on somebody else and forcing them to do it. You are a shitty partner and a shitty human being, and you exploited somebody else for their labor in order to enable yourself. That's not being smart or like a better person. That's being a jackass. And even worse is the advice that if you follow it, you would end up in more trouble. Like those guys, Bill Gates and those who tell you, oh, you only need a handful of shirts, like 3 or 4 shirts and some pairs of pants, and that's going to free you up from deciding what to wear every day. Yeah, go ahead and try that as a woman. Stop focusing on superficial things like getting your hair done and just get 1 haircut a month. If I, as a Black woman, never want to be employed again, that's advice I should definitely want to take. If I listen to these so-called successful people, not because their advice didn't work for somebody, it's just not designed for me. It doesn't take into account my experience. As a Black woman, I do not get a lot of those luxuries. If I'm disheveled like Einstein because I'm focused on the work, people are not going to assume I'm a genius. They're going to assume I'm dirty or lazy, that I don't know how to properly groom. So I have to fit into my schedule, showing up looking perfect and having my ideas there. I was just on an academic panel for a very prestigious conference in my field. I am not ashamed to say I spent more time on my outfit than I did on my paper because I'd already written the paper. So in our constant quest to decenter men, we do have to decenter them in our spiritual practices, in our advice practices, in our life advice, and everything that we do that relates to the personal, because men are not living our lives and we cannot apply their advice unilaterally to be successful. That's it. Like and follow for more.